So, hello everyone. My name is Lina, and I'm really very happy to be at my first virtual conference today. It is really a very tough experience, I really need to say, because we're lacking all this nonverbal communication, and the concentration span obviously drops down. But I was so happy to hear both speakers before me and see actually how inspiring and how different their talks was. So I want to tell you a bit about my career path. It is more of a personal story, but I'm also going to be interacting with you using Menti, which I will hopefully then ask you to share your thoughts. Let's see. Okay, so this doesn't work. Okay, so this is my first slide. I hope that you can all able to read it. Intelligence is the ability to adapt to change by Hawkins. And I have been working on learning and memory for the past 20 years. And for me, this is the title that strikes the most. How is our brain able to actually quickly find out that that the 7 is a T and the 3 is an E? And how quickly can we adapt this, mentally? But how actually slow are we doing when it comes to actually learning from behavior? I'd like you just to get a bit of an input, because this is the test to see how we can actually present talks and at the same time also get the audience to interact. So I'd like you to go to www.menti.com and then put the code 498133. Maybe if you can use the chat just to wave and tell me that you're there. Let's see.
Yep, I shared it also in the chat, Lina.
Good. So let me try to go now to the present. Oops, sorry. Maybe starting with the first one. Yeah, that's it. The first thumbs up. One person is logged in. I can see it by the thumbs up in the bottom. 3, 4, 5. You're doing great, ladies. Okay, just wait just a couple of seconds, because I was seeing that there's around 30 people on this virtual conference. So I just shout out and say, how are you feeling today? Amazing, tired, ready to go. I should have said here another column, kids are home, Mariam, because that's by itself is also very challenging. Okay, so ready, steady, go. Nobody is tired. 3 people are feeling amazing. So that's nice to see this progress, that now more and more people are logging into the Menti. That is wonderful, ladies. Now we have the third people coming tired. It's fine. Maybe a coffee, maybe taking a couple of seconds to refresh would be good. I'd like to know who you are. I was speaking, delivering a similar talk last week at the Rising Pineapple. And I think sometimes we women forget to sort of say, who are we? What really is driving it? How are we feeling today? So just some kind of word cloud. Who are you? Who are you today? Who are you? Not now, how are you, but who are you? In this spirit of celebrating Women's Day, it could be a profession, it could be how are you feeling, it could be what motivates you, but who are you? Good, engineer, go better. Yeah, I can see that's maybe a tough question at this time. They should have swapped the slides. Strength, beginner in programming, human, a dreamer, a student, amazing engineer, great, multitasking on a Sunday. That's true. Still here, UX person. That's so nice. My dream is that, at every engagement, I will have this picture of who are the people in this meeting, so that I would know what to deliver. Okay, I'm moving to the next question because I really, let me just, I am bold. Let me hide the picture. Oh yeah, here we are. Job seekers, students, developers, design or product, entrepreneurs, others. Okay. So I was like, also, what is the others? I could not obviously put all those categories there, but we'll be super happy to see afterwards how many others do we have and what does others entitle. Okay. So for all of you ladies that are job seekers, this is definitely the place to be in order to get inspired, learn about stories, ask as many questions, pair to get afterwards a follow-up and advice. That is really great. Okay. And I want to finally ask, because this is all about seeking what is next, getting really inspired. So if I ask you today, who or what is stopping you from reaching your dream job? Lack of experience. Yeah, myself. This is so true. Sometimes we are the main blockers to where we would like to go. Not experienced enough. Stable, well-paid job. Sometimes that's also like a comfort zone. Family, finance needs. Imposter syndrome. Communication. Anxiety and fear. Time. Networking or bad in networking. Ladies, it is so important to put those blockers in front of your face so that you understand, what am I gonna do in order to start tackling this this challenge? Okay, if it's experience, if it's the comfort zone, if it's the time, if it's the anxiety, every time you can put this in front of you, you will know, what do I need to do? Who do I need to pair up with? Where do I seek advice? Okay, I'm going to stop this, and it's so nice because I'm looking at the counter at the counter, and it's like 30 people are really logging in. This is really amazing. Let me tell you, I don't know if this is so back to my presentation. I was starting from something very, very positive that happened to me a month ago. This is a LinkedIn profile, LinkedIn post. I came on the Valentine's Day to my desk, and I found out a postcard from an admirer. It says, "Love is disruption. Lina is disruption. Therefore, Lina is love. Happy Valentine's Day. For me, a delivery hero from the consumer tech at the first floor." And I really love the fact that people on my team really care about the fact that we need to disrupt. I don't know why sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Yeah. So even the CEO of our 22,000 employees, delivery hero, he said amazing colleagues, because this is what for him is the success. And I mentioned that actually culture is top up, bottom up and top down, because he is definitely doing an amazing job so that people would recognize disruption as something really great. And that was like the most viral post I have ever had, with more than actually 11,000 views. My message for today is very clear. Dare to question and challenge everything. Dare to disrupt even yourself. And by this, use the questions that I asked you before about what is impeding you. I'm going to tell you my story. So actually, with the age of 16, I attended a 3-year intensive acting school, because I really found out that if I could be different personalities, then I could really be very smart and I could really answer a lot of questions. I continued actually my acting career till today, because I'm still teaching kids how to act, and I sometimes direct plays. But then down the road, I realized that I'm not able to answer a lot of questions through acting, because then you're just put in this situation for a given time. I found myself being very attracted to how does the brain work, and how do we think, or how do we learn? And this is a picture of my electrophysiology setup here at the Charité, because I was super interested to see in the brain what happens to the level of the two neurons when they interact. How can we manipulate learning? How can we induce learning? And why do kids learn better? But obviously I wasn't allowed to do experiments on kids. So I was doing experiments on mice. I was recording from the brain of mice on the level of the synapse, which is the place where the two neurons meet. And I went to the field of electrophysiology because I'm really driven by challenge. I don't like the easy path. I wanted to go into a field where it's like mainly male dominated, because this is where I'll be daily challenged. So I wasn't doing behavioral neuroscience, I was doing electrophysiology, but the translation of my work would have been, for example, in this water maze experiments that we do with the mice, which we would put the mice in a milky labyrinth, and then we'd find out how quick does the mouse now find this hidden platform. So before learning, the mouse would just go around and around, and then after behavioral learning, then the mouse would know how to get straight to the platform. And then I would actually go into the brain of those mice and ask, what changed in the cortical network between the neurons, in different parts of the neurons? How can we induce learning? But this was all great till I actually started teaching at the Charité a course called Problem-Oriented Learning. I would have been Dr. House. I would come and give the medical students a challenge Monday, and they have to solve it by Friday. But it's not about solving the challenge of like, a woman comes in and she says, "Oh, I should have taken the stick of my husband." It's about the students trying to figure out, what don't we know in order to figure out what is happening in this old woman about osteoporosis. So it was all about me accompanying them in this like build, measure, learn, in this inspect and come up with hypotheses. And it was so fascinating because after teaching such problem-oriented course at the Charité, I became aware of agile and design thinking. That was the point that I was like, okay, I'm doing experiments on mice in different areas of the brain, but actually I'm really interested in how do we learn, why do we learn, what triggers learning. And that's why I decided that the best thing is to go and experiment outside of the lab. For that, I did not know where's the best place to experiment. I did start a school to teach kids Arabic, because it's so easy to see how do kids learn, because their brains are very neuroplastic. But the problem with teaching kids is that you have parents that are actually less adaptive to change. This is where I turned out to businesses, because businesses have a high stake of wanting to change really quickly, otherwise they perish. And that's why I decided to go into design thinking and agile methodology. So the biggest challenge was, how do I navigate? And I was always driven by Churchill's quote, "Success consists of going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm." Because every time you transition from one place to other, or every experiment that you do, you have a high percentage of failure. And that is actually one of the essence of science, is that you should not do only those safe experiments. We're all the time coming up with hypotheses where we know that a lot of things are not going to work. But when it comes to the real world, the experimenting in real world, we are very much devastated by failure. But what happens is that actually we should feel very successful when we can go from one failure to the next, from one rejection to the next, and we still have this clear goal about what is it the thing that we want to reach, because we're still enthusiastic about it. So for me, it was like, what is the biggest challenge usually when you want to change is, what is the minimal viable change that you have to do? How do I change so small that I don't lose everything? And for me, it was, I'm sharing this screen where, what is it after leaving the academia, where I have been actually a neuroscientist more than 20 years, with always the focus on learning and memory and neuroplasticity. I made a list of all the rejections that I sat there. I attended a lot of meetups. I read a lot of books. I interacted with a lot of people. I went to lunches and coffees with a lot of people. And I'm very thankful to Ella mentioning how even when you approach people, you need to tell them what is driving you to contact them. At all the list of like rejections in this table. And obviously for every job, I needed also a cover letter that would explain, why do I think that I'm fit for that job? It was disastrous. You know, here I have, I'm just showing you the first page of this Excel, but actually like more than 50 rejections. But after each rejection, I would sit and say like, what happened? Why it didn't work? Sometimes, you know, you don't know because you just get rejected. But sometimes you, while interacting with people, you know that you haven't really sharpened your proposition. You haven't really searched the company really well. You haven't really interacted with the right people. So the rejections were for me actually the best learning bootcamp. I got super lucky, and it's not about luck actually, but it's also about knowing to learn from those rejections. When I was able to get an internship at Career Foundry, which is a tech company here in Berlin offering online courses in tech, and I approached them and said, I'm willing actually to be an unpaid intern in order to work as an Agile coach after getting my Scrum Master certification and after attending a lot of meetups and actually doing a lot of hands-on work. But everyone was telling me, I mean, what? You're leaving your academic career. I was almost and becoming an intern. This is so crazy. The amount of people that wanted to push me away from it is immense. But it was always this feeling like, I need to try, and it's fine to fail. And, you know, I could always come back to the academia. I could always, that's why when I started, I took a sabbatical leave. So this is what I'd say when change happens, don't sort of go full in, but try to have some kind of a way that you can always go back. Although some people will tell you, close all the doors so that you can be fully invested in it. So very important that in this sea of people that tells you you're very stupid, don't do it, you're wrong, you always have to find those people who actually believe in you. And sometimes those are the people that you will, for me, it was a big learning to know that it's not the conventional people. I will share with you in a second. So back to neuroscience, you know, we used to think that there's a critical period that you can be plastic to learn, right? And this happens only in early ages, yeah, where it's the ease of learning. But actually now we know that you can learn everything if you actually invest more time in order to learn it. So it's never too late to do what you always wanted to do and be whoever you wanted to be. But the trick is, are you willing to invest that much amount of time? And more than time, are you willing to fail that much? Are you willing to learn from your failure? So for that, a role model is needed. Somebody who you really look high up and you say like, I'm observing how they do it, and I could really talk to them. And for me, I'm sharing that my role model is actually my son. This is a picture that he's imitating me at the age of 3. But usually whenever I'm sort of like feeling very depressed about failures or rejections, I look, how would he face a rejection or a failure? And how does he learn something? How does he interact? How does he overcome when he actually burned bridges with people? So I'm a super lucky to have a son. He's 11 years old by now. That I could constantly learn and see how is he learning and how is he dealing with those failures and rejections. And he's my North Star basically for it. One more physiological and neurobiological factor is that I like to mention is that if you look at kids learning how to walk, kids, they don't sit there and look at people or and ask people how do they walk. What do? They stand up and then try to walk and fall. And just by falling, the brain sends messages to their muscle and says, hey, we need more muscle, please build muscle. Then there is again building of the muscle mass. And then the kids stand up and fall again. They say, okay, now we have the right muscles, but we have too many neurons that are innervating the wrong muscles. So let's kill some of those neurons. And then they stand up again and walk, and then they fall again. So it's if you really want to be inspired about rejections and about learning, about failures, look at a kid starting to walk. Now, you could come and say, hey, but an adult cannot learn how to walk the same way. And I would tell you, yes, they can. But then they have obviously to make a padded ground so that when they fall, they don't actually break another bone while falling. But afterwards, those that succeed in learning how to walk after an accident are the ones that have grit and are the ones that are reusing their rejections and their failures in order to invest in pruning of how do the muscles and the neurons work together. So a person who has never made a mistake never tried anything new. This is when I saw previously that you're your main blocker for failure and for not daring to disrupt yourself. So dare to do something new in order to really break. I'd like to use this moment to go back to the mentee. Let's see if I can do that. And I want you, just because I'm about to finish, just to say, if there is any aha, if there's anything in the talk, I mean, you will be sharing on Slack afterwards and some of the questions, but I would like to ask you, is there anything now from those 20 minutes that I was talking that you feel like, I want to try something out? What would it be? I don't know if you ladies are logging in to the Menti again. Okay. Yeah. Leverage for failure, failure tracking, be brave to fail. Thank you so much, ladies, for writing this, because it feels at least my message, or the message that I'm trying to convey, is coming through. Continue trying. What about the things that you need to do in order to keep? I am 48, finishing my BSc. Keep up with enthusiasm. Be brave to fail. Now, I want to actually mention something super important. It's so easy for me to sit from this place and tell you why it's okay to fail, and you would be hearing it from many, many people. But it is you who have to decide, what is the minimum failure that I can tolerate now? And how many failures can I do it? And how is it okay to actually talk about the failures? Yeah? Be honest to yourself, keep up the enthusiasm, put time in practicing, code more, continue typing. Good. So now I was anticipating that this will be a drop in participation. Only 14 people are really saying it loud, but it's absolutely fine. Just want to finish up by moving back to my slide. Let's see if I do this. So my final message is experiment. Yeah, only experimental mindset would really boost your confidence, diminish those fears that you're having, and upscale your affinity to change. And remember, we are intelligent because we are adaptive to change. If we don't change, it means that we stay very flat. Finishing by Jalaluddin Rumi saying, yesterday I was clever and I wanted to change the world. This is how I started up my life. I wanted to be as an actress, and I wanted to change a lot of things, and as an activist. I hope now, I'm 42 years old, I hope I'm becoming wiser, because it's also a journey. And I learned that actually I can change myself first. I can focus on my fears. I can focus on my family. I can focus on who do I learn from. I can focus on who inspires me. I can focus on what every time I'm learning in order for the next iteration. So the message is, leave your comfort zone, take more risks, dare to disrupt yourself, and change. Thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you so much.
Let me see, how do I turn back to the questions?
There is a question in the chat. Let me know if you need help. I can read it out to you.
Let me see if I can do this. Sometimes it's difficult getting back to the chat.
You can maybe stop sharing, screen sharing, and then it will be easier to see it.
Here, stop share. Absolutely, this is good. Good. So I'm going to start reading the questions. How to integrate and execute learning to keep up the enthusiasm. So I'm an agile coach. You know, I did not want to sort of flash that so much in this talk, but we use frameworks like Scrum and like Kanban. And if you think about it, at every cycle, when we already deliver something, you should pause and reflect and write down what did work, what worked out, and what didn't work out, and what will you be attempting to do next. So even as a scientist, you know, we would sort of analyze the data and we'd say, this worked because of something and this failed because of something, but what are we going to be doing next? So my advice is to sit and reflect and write down what was the learning, but most important, write down what is the thing that you want to experiment next. So a reflection without actions is actually just, you know, I would say a waste of time. So at the end of session of reflection, you should really be coming and saying, I want to test what next time? What is the one thing that I want to try to do? I'm reading from Eileen. Thanks for the talk. I want to ask you, how often do you get constructive feedback? I'm going to get a very general email reply, like I found someone else closely to this role. Would like to know how to get more details, feedback, so I could work on it. That's an excellent question, because usually when you're applying for jobs, they don't bother. People don't usually bother sending, because there are sometimes also companies are afraid to tell you why you have been rejected. That's why what my advice to you is, try to connect with people. Try to ask them to give you this feedback face to face. Reach out after rejection, especially if you're some way through your interview. Reach out to the person who interviewed you and you had a good connection with them, and tell them, thank you for the rejection. I'm stronger now by this. Can you please share with me some feedback? It just happened to me actually yesterday, on Friday. I had an excellent pitch. I thought that this is going to really change my career, because I wanted to pitch to our chief people officer how I want to invest less in agile, more in learning. And she came and she said, oh, Lina, because of budgeting reason, I think that your transition to my department would be not feasible. And I told her, thank you so much. Can we now put the budgeting thing on the side? Can you tell me, based on the interaction with me, which feedback you would give me? And then she opened up, and I learned so much about what is it, the thing, apart from the budgeting, which was only an excuse that I need to focus on in the next pitch. And I was so thankful for her. So my advice, try to interact with people who are interviewing you or when you're pitching, so that you would get this constructive feedback, and tell them that you're not really devastated, or you're not, I mean, sad, you can always be sad, yeah, but you're not, I don't know what's the opposite of enthusiastic, but you want to learn from this experience, and you want to work on yourself more. Thanks for sharing and the precious experience, and also answering the question. Thank you so much, Tinda. Same.
Okay. Lina, would you be willing to answer one more question? There is one from Mariam. Or... Of
course.
Yeah. Oh, Mariam, I think you sent it to me. It says, what advice would you give for experienced people when starting new careers by not feeling intimidated with failure?
I think it doesn't matter if you're senior or you're junior. What matters is, are you taking the time to reflect on those failures, and are you coming up with the actions that you want to do? Now, obviously, with the more senior you become, then people also expect you to be more resilient, okay? But think of my example, you know, I was very senior in the academia, but I was very, very, very junior, you know, inexperienced when I transitioned to Agile coaching. And I wouldn't say inexperienced because I did use all the things that I used from my previous life as a scientist in order to invest it in my Agile coaching career. Now, this is what you need to highlight to the people, that you bring your experience with you. You use, or you integrate basically your experience with you. And my first advice would be, in the beginning, don't promise much, even as a senior person. You know, just take the time to read the room, take the time to observe more, take the time to actually interact with more people, take the time to even be vulnerable, right? And after that, you know, there's this rules of like 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months in a new job, that you need to not be too quick, not be too fast, and not be too slow, but reflecting on those different intervals makes you then have a plan of how do you want to navigate your new job. I hope that answered the question.
Okay, thank you very much, Lina. This was really inspiring.